I know, but as the character that I was assuming at the moment, I couldn't afford to be on that.
I said, I don't like. I'd rather be at the other end of it, you know.
Edward G. Robinson. The name alone brings to mind Hollywood's golden age, tough guy roles, and larger-than-life charisma. He built a career playing men who always had the upper hand. Yet in real life, he lost almost everything. His son, his fortune, even his dignity. But there's something about his story that people still whisper about. A mysterious part of his life that leaves everyone asking, what really happened? Let's get into that. Emanuel Goldenberg was born on December 12, 1893, in Bucharest, Romania. His early life unfolded in a vibrant but challenging time for Jewish families in the city. Emanuel's family lived in a modest home in Bucharest's Jewish quarter, surrounded by the culture and traditions of Eastern European Jewish life. His father, Morris Goldenberg, worked as a builder, while his mother, Sarah, cared for the household. Life in Romania was not easy for the Goldenbergs. Jewish families faced harsh laws that restricted their opportunities in work and education. Anti-Semitism was growing, and violent outbreaks against Jews were not uncommon. Despite these struggles, Emanuel showed a keen mind and a love for the arts. He enjoyed taking part in small plays at his synagogue, where his talent and passion for performance began to shine. By the late 1890s, the increasing difficulties for Jews in Romania pushed the family to dream of a better life in America. In 1903, when Emanuel was just 10 years old, the family left Romania and embarked on a long journey to the United States. They arrived through Ellis Island, like many immigrants from Eastern Europe at the time, and settled in New York's Lower East Side. Life in this bustling neighborhood was not easy. The Goldenbergs had to learn a new language, adjust to American culture, and cope with the poverty that many immigrant families faced. Emanuel worked hard to master English while still speaking Yiddish, Romanian, and German at home. The Lower East Side was full of energy and diverse cultures, and it had a strong influence on Emanuel's understanding of people and the world. His family hoped he would become a rabbi or a lawyer, but Emanuel's love for acting only grew stronger as he explored his new surroundings. In 1913, Emanuel received a scholarship to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, a turning point in his life. This gave him the chance to focus on his dream of becoming an actor. The road ahead was not easy. He faced countless rejections and had to settle for small roles in the beginning. Still, he persisted and finally made his Broadway debut in 1915. Over the next 15 years, he devoted himself to the stage, taking on many roles and slowly building a reputation as a talented and serious actor. In 1929, he co-wrote and performed in a play called The Kibitzer. This project showed his skill not just as an actor, but also as a writer, proving his versatility and deep dedication to theater. These early struggles helped him develop his unique style and prepared him for future success in the world of film. As his career grew, Emanuel decided to change his name to Edward G. Robinson. This decision wasn't just about picking a new name, it was about creating a new identity for the stage and screen. The G in his new name paid homage to his original last name, Goldenberg, while making his stage name easier for audiences to remember. This transformation marked the start of a new chapter in his life and career. Edward G. Robinson became a Hollywood star through his unforgettable performance in Little Caesar in 1931. The movie, released during the Great Depression, struck a chord with audiences. Robinson's intense performance and famous final line, "Mother of Mercy, is this the end of Rico?" became iconic, cementing his place in Hollywood history. Despite being only 5 feet 5 inches and not having traditional leading man looks, Robinson's sheer charisma and presence captivated viewers. He had doubts about his ability to dominate scenes, but he used his stature to his advantage, stretching himself to appear taller and pouring every bit of intensity into his performance. Critics loved him, calling his work in Little Caesar the blueprint for all future gangster portrayals. After the success of Little Caesar, Robinson quickly became known as Hollywood's go-to gangster. Between 1930 and 1932, he acted in 14 films, proving his incredible dedication to his craft. His roles often reflected the struggles of immigrants trying to find their place in America, which resonated with his own background as a Romanian Jewish immigrant. This gave his characters depth and relatability, making them more than just stereotypical criminals. Warner Brothers was so impressed by his talent that they signed him to a long-term contract and paired him with James Cagney in Smart Money, 1931. Surprisingly, it was the only film the two legends ever made together. Although Robinson became famous for playing gangsters, he worked hard to prove he could do much more. In 1935, he starred in The Whole Town's Talking, a film where he played two completely different roles, a dangerous gangster and a timid bank clerk. This showed his incredible range and helped him move beyond typecasting. Later, in Double Indemnity, 1944, he played an insurance investigator, Barton Keyes, in a supporting role that became one of his career highlights. At first, Robinson wasn't thrilled about taking a smaller part, but he later admitted it was the right choice, saying it was time to gracefully transition into older roles. But his journey was far from perfect. Robinson became a target because of his support for anti-fascist causes during World War II. The FBI identified 11 out of more than 850 organizations he had supported as communist fronts. Although he had never been a member of the Communist Party, his associations raised suspicion. By April 1952, Robinson, under increasing pressure, testified for the last time before HUAC, not because he was subpoenaed, but because he was desperate to clear his name. During this appearance, he distanced himself from his past affiliations and named several colleagues, including Albert Maltz, Dalton Trumbo, and others. Robinson firmly declared his loyalty to America, saying, "My conscience is clear. My loyalty to this nation I know to be absolute." One of the most painful moments came when HUAC labeled Robinson as naive. Committee Chair Francis E. Walter called him a very choice sucker, a statement that deeply humiliated him. Another member, John Stevens Wood, took it further, saying Robinson was #1 on the sucker list in this country. These remarks hurt Robinson, who had worked hard for America's interests during both world wars. He was a fluent speaker of 6 languages and had even narrated propaganda broadcasts for the Allies, earning recognition from the American Legion. The sucker label stuck because HUAC believed Robinson had blindly supported organizations without understanding their potential communist ties. Despite his passionate plea, "Either snap my neck or set me free. If you snap my neck, I will still say, I believe in America." HUAC never fully cleared his name. In October 1952, Robinson wrote an article for American Legion magazine titled "How the Reds Made a Sucker Out of Me." In this piece, he tried to explain how communists had misled him. He described how they pretended to be good Americans who supported causes like peace and workers' rights, all while hiding their true agenda of world domination and oppression. Robinson's article ended with his firm declaration, "I am not a communist. I have never been. I never will be. I am an American." This public confession was his attempt to repair his reputation and career, but it came at a personal and professional cost. Despite being cleared by HUAC, the damage to Robinson's career was irreversible. Before the hearings, he was one of Hollywood's most respected stars, known for roles in films like Little Caesar and Key Largo. Afterward, his career sharply declined. The roles he was offered became fewer and smaller, and the industry never fully welcomed him back. The hearings left a stigma that followed him, showing how even being declared innocent wasn't enough to erase suspicion during the blacklist era. Robinson's career had a major turning point when he was cast as Dathan in The 10 Commandments in 1956. This role came at a critical time for him. During the McCarthy era, Robinson had been gray-listed, which made it hard for him to find quality roles. He was stuck doing smaller-budget films like Vice Squad and Black Tuesday. But Cecil B. DeMille saw his potential and took a bold chance by casting him in this biblical epic. The movie was a massive production, costing $13 million, and became DeMille's most successful film. Robinson's performance as the scheming overseer who betrays Moses won wide praise. His work in the film even earned him a special award from the Maryland State Council of the American Jewish Congress. Years later, the movie was chosen for preservation in the National Film Registry as a piece of work that was culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Robinson nearly added another iconic role to his career when he was cast as Dr. Zaius in Planet of the Apes in 1968. He completed screen tests with Charlton Heston, and early footage of him in makeup exists, but the role was physically demanding. The heavy prosthetics and hours in the makeup chair were especially tough for Robinson, who was already dealing with heart issues. The filming conditions were hot and grueling, and he ultimately decided to step away from the role before filming began. Maurice Evans took over the part, but Robinson's almost casting remains a fascinating what-if moment in Hollywood history. Even in his later years, Robinson achieved remarkable things despite health struggles. Between 1965 and 1973, he appeared in notable films like The Cincinnati Kid, a project he joined at the request of Steve McQueen, who had admired him as a child. Robinson's performance was highly praised, and his name appeared prominently in the credits. In 1969, he received the Screen Actors Guild Award for his lifelong contributions, including his service during World War II. In 1973, Edward G. Robinson gave his final performance in the dystopian thriller Soylent Green, playing the role of Sol Roth. At the time, Robinson was privately battling terminal cancer, a fact he kept secret from everyone on set. The film, set in a grim 2022, where the world is plagued by food shortages and environmental collapse, would become his 101st and last movie. Robinson's character, Sol Roth, chooses state-sponsored euthanasia in the story, a haunting parallel to Robinson's own struggle with mortality. Filming took place in late 1972, and despite his failing health, Robinson brought wisdom and weariness to the role, qualities that mirrored his reality in those final days. Robinson's professionalism during the making of Soylent Green was extraordinary. According to his co-star, Charlton Heston, Robinson never missed a day of work or even showed signs of the pain he was enduring. Heston noted in his journal that Robinson arrived on time every day, performed with unwavering dedication, and handled the physically and emotionally demanding scenes with grace. The long hours under bright studio lights and the intense scenes could have been grueling for any actor, let alone one battling a terminal illness. Yet, Robinson maintained the same commitment that had defined his 5-decade career. One of the most unforgettable moments in Soylent Green is Robinson's death scene, filmed in a facility called the Thanatorium, where people choose to end their lives. In the scene, Sol Roth lies peacefully on a gurney, surrounded by screens showing images of Earth's lost beauty, accompanied by classical music. Tragically, this scene mirrored Robinson's own reality. He knew it would be his last performance. The filmmakers intentionally scheduled it as his final scene, adding an emotional depth to the experience. For 8 minutes on screen, Sol says goodbye to life, a metaphor for Robinson's own farewell to cinema and the world. Charlton Heston later described this moment as one of the most emotional experiences he ever had on set. Although Heston didn't know Robinson was dying at the time, he was deeply moved during the filming of the scene. His tears on camera, genuine. Only later did he learn that Robinson had approached this performance fully aware it would be his last. Robinson learned he was going to receive an honorary Academy Award during the final days of his life. This recognition came after more than 50 years in the film industry and 101 movies. The award honored his immense contributions to cinema and praised him as a Renaissance man for his talents, love of the arts, and dedication to society. Despite iconic performances in films like Little Caesar, Double Indemnity, and Key Largo, Robinson had never been nominated for a competitive Oscar. It was bittersweet recognition for a career that placed him among the greatest stars in American cinema. Ranked number 24 by the American Film Institute. On March 27, 1973, at the Academy Awards, Robinson's widow, Jane Robinson, accepted the honorary Oscar on his behalf. Charlton Heston, who had shared Robinson's final film and had once presented him with a Screen Actors Guild Award, gave the presentation. The moment was deeply emotional, reflecting Robinson's incredible life and career. The death of Edward G. Robinson on January 26, 1973, brought together one of the largest and most memorable funeral gatherings in Hollywood's history. At Temple Israel in Los Angeles, 1,500 mourners filled the synagogue, with another 500 standing silently outside to pay their respects. Just 84 days earlier, Robinson had finished filming his final scene in Soylent Green, and he had recently learned he would receive an honorary Academy Award. Sadly, he passed away before he could accept it. Charlton Heston, his co-star in Soylent Green, delivered a moving eulogy, reflecting on Robinson's impact on film and the people who knew him. The funeral procession, escorted by police, stretched nearly a mile, showing just how much Robinson meant to Hollywood and his fans. The pallbearers for Robinson's funeral were some of the biggest names from Hollywood's golden age. Among them were Jack L. Warner, Hal B. Wallace, Mervyn LeRoy, George Burns, Frank Sinatra, Sam Jaffe, Jack Karp, and Alan Simpson. Each of these men had a unique connection to Robinson, whether as studio executives who gave him opportunities or as actors and friends who admired him. Frank Sinatra, deeply inspired by Robinson's work in civil rights, asked to be included. George Burns, who had known Robinson since their early days in theater, later said that carrying his friend's casket was one of the hardest things he ever had to do. After the Los Angeles service, Robinson's body was flown to New York, where he was laid to rest in his family's mausoleum at Beth El Cemetery in Queens. Edward G. Robinson's influence on cinema went far beyond his famous roles as a tough guy. Over a career that spanned 50 years, he acted in more than 100 films and 30 Broadway plays. His role in Little Caesar, 1931, set the standard for gangster films and changed the genre forever. But Robinson wasn't just an actor. He was a leader in Hollywood, helping to organize the Screen Actors Guild and fighting for actors' rights. During World War II, he was the first movie star to entertain troops in Normandy for the USO, and personally donated $100,000, a fortune at the time, to support the war effort. Robinson's talent with languages also allowed him to broadcast messages to Nazi-occupied countries in 6 different languages. Robinson's personal life revolved around 2 significant marriages, each with its own challenges and meaning. His first marriage was to Gladys Lloyd Cassell, a stage actress, in 1927. They were together for nearly 30 years and had one son, Edward G. Robinson Jr., known as Manny, born in 1933. But their relationship ended painfully in 1956 with a bitter divorce. 2 years later, in 1958, he married Jane Bodenheimer, better known by her professional name, Jane Arden. This marriage brought more stability, and they remained together until Robinson's death in 1973. Robinson's relationship with his son Manny was deeply troubled. At 19, Manny eloped to Tijuana with his first wife, an act that angered Robinson so much that he kicked his son out of the house. Manny's life was full of drama, attracting constant tabloid attention. He struggled with personal issues and often clashed with his father's more refined and disciplined lifestyle. In 1968, things became even more complicated when a judge declared Manny the father of a daughter, Shawn, born in 1966 to Lucille Cass. By the time Robinson passed away, Manny had been married 3 times and had 2 children. Tragically, Manny's own life ended in 1974, just 1 year after his father's death. While Robinson was known for playing tough guys on screen, he had a softer side as a dedicated art collector. Over decades, he built an impressive private collection that was admired throughout Hollywood. But his love for art became tied to some of the hardest times in his life. During the 1950s, Robinson faced 2 major crises: his divorce and the challenges of the Hollywood blacklist. The divorce settlement in 1956 forced him to sell off his cherished art collection. This loss was more than just financial. It struck at the heart of one of his greatest passions. At the same time, his career was slowing down due to political tensions in Hollywood. This period left Robinson dealing with both professional setbacks and the emotional pain of losing something he had spent years building.